glow buzz. Listen tight from this night. Watch his face light up bright. Your childhood light bright. And pretty glow baby.
Glow baby's tired, Mommy.
Good night, glow baby. Good night, Susie. They're all machine washable. Batteries not included and each sold separately. Who has these good night friends? Hasbro has.
Was a little wary. Did not want to take the holiday. He's at $73. James at 25. Stand at 20. Back with us. What Hebrew word meaning my master is the name of the spiritual leader of the Jewish congregation? Hey, Rabbi. Rabbi is exactly what it is. So he goes to third. Founded in the early 1840s, this city is now...
Last week we reported on Helen Oliver and her friends being thrown out of their Justiceville shantytown. Some of the evicted homeless may have found better places to live. But as Jim Mitchell tells us in a live report, most of them, including Helen Oliver, have gone from bad to worse. Jim?
Well, Jess, where I'm standing right now is just a half a block from where Justiceville used to be on the other side of that wall behind me. And many of the people haven't moved very far at all, just down here to a park. It's a no-name park. I asked somebody what it's called. They said, well, call it Skid Row Park if you like. And this has become home for many people who have no place to go at all. The bulldozers destroyed Justiceville, but they brought nothing to replace the ramshackle shanties that housed the drifters and the homeless. It also brought nationwide publicity to Helen Oliver.
Do you know what you're going to do?
No, I don't. I don't, other than leave when I'm asked to go.
If Justiceville was a symbol for the homeless, Helen Oliver is its temporary replacement, a living symbol with a shopping cart, 3 dogs, and a cat.
I'm not the kind of woman that used to living on a shopping cart.
I found Helen sitting on a park bench this morning just a few hours after she was visited by some Chicago relatives who want to take her back home. But she won't go.
Well, they spoke to me about it. They asked me if I would go. But
what did you tell them?
I thanked them, but I said no.
Helen says she has her own plans, but most of the people in this park have no plans at all. The west end of the park is controlled by drug dealers who gather under the pavilion. The east end of the park is guarded from this ramshackle hut by a reclusive woman called Mama. There's not much here at the park. Alcohol, drugs, occasional violence. So why do people stay here? Well, if nothing else, this park offers them a sense of belonging.
A lot of hungry people out in the street.
There's the communal kitchen. Today it's trash can vegetables and broth. And there's companionship of a sort.
It's a family. We stick together. We really do. We get mad and fight, and we yell and scream. I mean, I'm getting SSI because Spanky hit me in the head with a Thunderbird bottle. It's true.
But 61-year-old Helen Oliver is just waiting here, waiting for a mysterious man named Herbert.
I hope I'm going to be a bride and a wife and mother. This is what I'm hoping for.
When's the last time you saw your fiancé?
Oh, it's been quite a while. From what I understand, he wants to come and pick me up. And I think he'll be here before the week is out. I hope. At least that's the way I'm thinking anyway.
For Helen Oliver, there is hope. You can see her here, still walking down here at the park and still waiting for Herbert. But for many other people here at the park, there's very little hope at all. Jim Mitchell reporting live from Skid Row in downtown Los Angeles.
Thank you, Jim.
Last night, Channel 2's investigative reporter Jim Mitchell revealed that each year about 2,000 people are arrested and jailed for serious crimes they did not commit. And it's all because a computer used by Los Angeles police and 86 other agencies points its electronic finger at the wrong person. Well, tonight we learn more about this situation and what's being done about it. Jim?
Well, Ralph, the computer is called AWWS, the Automated Wants and Warrant System. Now, it's designed to help police catch wanted criminals, ranging from those who have failed to pay traffic tickets on time to wanted killers. But that computer is imperfect, and so are the police who use it. As a result, innocent people can find themselves treated like wanted criminals, especially if they happen to have a common name. A common name like Smith, Hall, Williams, or Jones.
He took my license, and he looked at it, and I guess what they do with all, stopping like they run a check on me, I imagine, downtown. And with a period of 4 to 5, what I would call really, honestly and truly, 4 to 5 seconds, came a bombardment of police cars, black and whites, along with about 4 or 5 motorcycles, policemen.
Ray Smith, arrested at gunpoint after making an illegal left turn. The computer identified him as an armed robbery suspect.
Came back and moved around behind me, told me to put my hands behind my head, handcuffed me. All the time I was protesting about this, not violently at all, because I just assumed there was a misunderstanding of some sort.
Robert Hall, arrested by police while waiting for his wife downtown. The computer mistook him for another Robert Hall.
You know, stuff like this happens to me often, not only to me, to other people.
James Williams, arrested 10 times on criminal warrants for another man.
Both of them fell behind the car, you know, and pulled the gun, and they just threw down and said, "He said, hold it, goddamn, don't move, I'll blow your head off."
Odell Jones, twice jailed as a wanted killer, but he's the wrong man. This is a photograph of the other Odell Jones, the man wanted by Los Angeles police for a murder and armed robbery. And this is a photograph of the innocent Odell Jones taken after he was first arrested as the wanted killer. While they are obviously not the same man, their physical descriptions are similar.
6 men you cut out of Charles Edward 81, repeat the last number.
And that's why the Los Angeles Police Department's automated wants and warrants computer can't seem to distinguish between them. In fact, it was the photographs that led to Jones' release the second time he was jailed.
I went down to the Division 30 lockup, and as I walked through the door, I saw a black man sitting there, Odell Jones, he identified himself as, with a look on his face that, please, I'm not the man.
It was L.A. Police Detective Michael Heffernan who discovered the mistake.
I laid down my photographs, and immediately Odell jumped out of his chair and he said, "That's me, that's me, that's me." And I flipped the photograph over, and a previous detective several years ago had wrote "wrong man" on the back of that photograph.
After we inquired about Jones' problem with the Los Angeles Police Department, the department agreed to provide a letter they said will prevent Jones from being mistakenly arrested again.
You guys recognize this gentleman?
I certainly do. How are you doing? How you doing, sir?
Jones was greeted by Police Commander Bill Booth and 2 detectives investigating that 1971 murder Jones was mistakenly arrested for. After carefully checking Jones' identification, Commander Booth agreed to provide him with a letter saying he is not the Odell Jones wanted for murder. So now the innocent Odell Jones has a letter which might protect him against future arrests. But what about the other Odell Jones, the one wanted for murder here in Los Angeles? We found him. He's in jail in Texas. He's been in the Texas State Penitentiary since 1980. If he serves his full sentence on charges of aggravated robbery, he'll be there until the year 2000. So why not just take his name out of the computer and prevent the confusion?
We have discussed the case, including the issues that you raised, with the deputy district attorneys here, and their advice, I feel, is good advice, that the case should remain open and the warrant should remain accessible. I am electing not to pull the warrant.
The question critics keep asking is this: are police becoming too dependent on their computers? And are they becoming less dependent on their own good judgment in making decisions in the field?
I think from the number of abuses we see, that's a fair conclusion.
Public Defender Joyce Yoshioka says she sees wrong warrant victims in court frequently.
The most extreme case that I personally have seen is an instance where the person they were looking for was a quadriplegic who had I think he had something like myasthenia gravis, something that you would not expect to recover from.
And nevertheless, someone else was arrested on a warrant?
Oh, sure, somebody who was running up and down the lockup really wasn't the right person.
So then you were picked up on a warrant for a person who was Asian and named Robert Hall. That's correct.
This Robert Hall is another wrong warrant victim. He is also, by profession, a computer analyst.
There was a hit on the computer. Yeah, hit on the computer. They weren't about to challenge the computer, is that? I think that the impression that I got from them was, listen, this is an administrative problem. Just let them work it out down at Parker Center where they took me. That they did not want to know if I was the right man, if I wasn't the right man. They were basically just doing what the computer told them to do.
What kinds of impacts have all these arrests had on you?
I lost a job. I lost one girlfriend. It's embarrassing.
Did anybody ever apologize or offer you any kind of explanation?
No.
Nothing?
No, it was like, you better be glad you're loose. You know, nobody never said, well, Mr. Williams, you know, we're really sorry about what happened to you. Could you please accept our apology? None of that.
Yeah, all they did was just say, you're a lucky man to be free.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we see it's not you. Okay, you can go.
Police are making some positive attempts to improve the situation. We'll be talking about those in future reports. Meanwhile, the best advice we can offer you is this. Always carry a driver's license with you, even when you're jogging or at the beach. Make sure it's up to date and that it has your current address as well as your complete name. Now, that will at least reduce the odds you might be mistaken for a wanted criminal. If you know or even suspect there might be a warrant issued for your arrest, consult an attorney and arrange to turn yourself in. Otherwise, you're risking an inconvenient and possibly dangerous confrontation with a police officer on the street. No system, computerized or otherwise, can absolutely prevent mistaken arrests. All you as a private citizen and a concerned public official can do is reduce the chances. Send in, Ralph.
Excellent, although clearly a frightening report. We will look forward to all of those follow-ups. Thanks,
I'll have
Jim.
more.
Okay.
Good evening, gangs and drugs. Tonight, police and community leaders are searching for new ways to try to control them. We have two reports. First, within the last few hours, residents of one Hollywood neighborhood have banded together to put a stop to drug sales on their streets. Jim Mitchell is there. He has a live report. Jim?
And just let me tell you, the drug traffic on this street, this one-block stretch of Leland Way, has really been very heavy. The dealers stand on the street corners, the customers drive by. I drove by earlier this afternoon before police arrived, and as I was driving along rather slowly, just looking over the neighborhood, a drug dealer popped out from between those two houses over there. He flashed a packet of marijuana, said, "Make it quick, buddy, I got to get out of here." We talked for a few minutes. He said he makes about $200–300 a day dealing drugs along this street. For me, it was an unusual experience. For the people who live here, it's something that happens hundreds of times every day. Less than 6 months ago, Channel 2 cameraman Larry Green had the same experience on this same Hollywood street. A proposed drug sale he captured on videotape.
It's so hot today, I mean, I've been getting changed to...
How much?
That's a dime.
Dimes worth? What type? Is it good? Or?
Yeah, 2 cents.
The drug dealers who are selling on this street have threatened some residents, and many of them are afraid. Gary asked us not to use his last name.
I'm concerned about my wife. She's not free to walk around this neighborhood at night. It's not safe at all. I don't even feel safe myself walking. I mean, I get harassed from these guys selling dope every time I walk out of my house.
But will closing this short stretch of street really have any effect? While we watched, police made one more arrest, took in a few more drug packets, but while police brass hope this will help, the patrolmen on the street are pessimistic.
It's all over the city, so that's just a problem, you know, that's going on. You know, move it out of here, it's going to go somewhere else because they're going to keep doing it.
And sure enough, about an hour after police moved in here, I took a walk just a few blocks down the street. I saw 3 people who were obviously dealing drugs to passing cars, including the young man who tried to sell me marijuana earlier in the day. Jim Mitchell reporting live from Hollywood.
Okay, thank you, Jim. The Channel 2 News Investigations Unit is looking at what Southern California's trade schools promise and what they deliver. In part 2 of his 5-part report, Jim Mitchell focuses on a major vocational college and student complaints that they were led to expect much more than they actually get. Jim?
Connie, the school is called Southland College. It presently has 4 campuses here in the Los Angeles area, and hundreds of students. Most of those students come from lower income neighborhoods, most of them looking for a way out of poverty which surrounds them. But for some at least, the dreams of a better future after attending Southland have turned to dust.
For more than 20 years, Southland College has been one of the largest private vocational schools in Los Angeles. Every year, about 800 students enroll in a wide array of courses in the medical, legal, and business fields. But how well are the students being taught here at Southland? What kinds of resources are available for them? How much are they really able to learn? We were invited into a classroom by a teacher. We met with her students who felt they were not being treated fairly. Do any of you feel you're getting your money's worth out of attending this school?
No. No. No.
None of you?
No.
These students are all attending classes in word processing. Like most of the Southland students, they are attending on the basis of government grants or government-guaranteed student loans. Each student is being charged about $5,000 for the course. Their teacher is Joyce Chase.
They're not getting half what they pay for here. They're just by themselves, an island by themselves. I mean, nobody cares, nobody gets supplies for them, nobody gets their software.
Word processing is a specialty that requires a high degree of computer literacy, sophisticated training. But here the students say they even have difficulty in getting paper for typewriters and books for their studies.
We have one instance, the machine, which is a vital part of the word processing course, which was down for a whole week.
There's one machine back there which is a MAG card too, and I had to wait 2 months, a month and a half, to get my supplies for that machine before I can start it. And before that, I was just stuck doing nothing.
You go with months or 2 months without an English book, but you still go to English class and just sit down and wait until you get the English book.
Enter Scott Wayne, a school administrator and son of its president, Mickey Wayne. Unbeknownst to us, he had been monitoring our conversations with students through a wall-mounted intercom. We've talked to students who've been here students for 5 months, been students here for 5 months, and tell me that they've waited 2-3 months for a simple text book.
This is the very first that we have heard about it.
The first you've
heard? The very
of it?
first. That's
It's not true. We went to the president of the school, Miss Wayne, and she sent one of her administrators down, and she said, sure, you need supply, fill out a paper, and turn it into a box. We did. She said she lost the paper. She never received the paper. Our supply books, how long have we been waiting for an English book? Every time we come back to you.
We have ordered them. They are on order. The publishers are slow.
Other problems appear to begin with inadequate student admissions procedures.
They sent students here that don't even know how to type, to word processing class, and they just come and sit here.
And her financial officer, Frank Rockford. We asked him about complaints students were insufficiently screened.
From what I understand, they're given a test, and they have
a typing test?
Who was given the typing test in this case?
A typing test.
She wasn't even asked if she could type.
No, a written test, but not a typing test.
We take for granted, that they're going to tell us the truth that they could type so many words per minute, and if they would on their own try to improve that.
So there is no typing test.
I'm not going to say there is or there isn't because of the fact I'm not there.
You told me a moment ago that there was a typing test.
From what I understand,
is there a typing test or isn't there?
From what I understand, there is.
All they're interested in is your financial, how they going to get their money. They run you a bunch of paper in front of you. They read this as well. You read it when you get home. Sign it now, read it when you get home.
Tom Burns was hired by Southland College in 1981 to teach respiratory therapy, a course requiring high degrees of skill and comprehension.
One class had some people who couldn't read and write. What we had were students who should have been gotten to by an English teacher before they were ever gotten to by a respiratory therapy teacher or anything else that they taught there.
But after 3 months, he resigned, disgusted, he says, with school policies that forced him to keep unqualified students in the classroom. During the time you were there, did you ever see any students who were flunked out because they did not qualify academically?
Never.
Never?
Never. It was against school policy. Nobody could fail academically. And I said, what do you mean we don't fail students? I didn't fail a student. The student failed. And this person said, well, that's the school's policy. So I went over his head to the director of the school, Mickey Wayne, and I was told the same thing by her, to keep giving the test until that student got at least a C.
Would you consider it appropriate for an instructor to be told by his superiors that he is not to flunk students, that he is to give them C's?
Well, that assumes that it happened. I don't know that it happened.
If it did happen, would you as a member of the advisory board look upon that as a good practice?
I think we would have concerns, yes.
Attorney Robert Thompson has served as a member of the school's advisory board for many years. School officials accompanied us on a visit to the school's Montebello branch, where we found medical and dental classes in progress, classrooms that appeared to be well equipped, students closely supervised.
The test for Southland, as for any other similar institution, should be the placement rate.
I think the placement rate of our graduates runs system-wide somewhere around 80%.
But students we met at the downtown campus are not optimistic about their chances for employment.
If a big company is willing to give us a break, then yeah, we might be able to get a job.
They would have to start you over and train you completely over.
They'd have to train you over again?
Right.
And they're giving us a grant from the government. I don't think the government knows what they're paying out all this money to the school for. If someone from the government would come here and see where the money is going, they would be totally shocked.
And for many vocational schools, federal funds are the name of the game. Guaranteed student loans and outright grants support a large segment of California's privately owned vocational schools. Tomorrow we will see just how those schools are regulated and whether or not the taxpayers are getting their money's worth. Connie, Jess.
Thank you, Jim. Politicians up and down the state are getting a warning they may have to give back more than $250,000 in illegal campaign contributions. That's because the money came from Patrick Moriarty. He's the Orange County fireworks magnate who was recently convicted of mail fraud, growing out of charges of political influence peddling. Channel 2's Jim Mitchell dropped by City Hall today to see how some of the recipients of those contributions feel about that idea. He's here with the story. Jim?
Well, just the Moriarty case is not the favorite subject at City Hall. A lot of politicians have been avoiding it like the plague. And not too many people in the LA City Council chambers this morning were especially happy to see me, especially when I told them the subject is illegal campaign contributions.
Property line where a retaining wall is going to be built.
Most of the money went to the City Council members during 1981 and 1982, and it went in an effort at least to buy influence. Moriarty wanted the city to legalize so-called safe and sane fireworks, the kind he manufactured and sold through his Orange County firms.
It was more a providing of total access to the government functions of the city of Los Angeles.
Former Moriarty associate Richard Keith admits to acting as a principal conduit for the illegal campaign contributions. And that was whose money?
It was Patrick Moriarty's.
Keith provided us with canceled contribution checks, most of them drawn on a front company called Card Construction. $2,000 to City Councilwoman Joan Flores. Were you aware at all that this contribution was coming from Mr. Moriarty, that it was illegally laundered?
No, I did not.
$3,500 to City Councilman Joel Wax. What was your understanding of the purpose of that contribution at the time it was made?
Well, I never heard of the Card Construction Company.
And $5,000 to City Councilman Dave Cunningham. Did you have any idea that this money originated with Mr. Moriarty?
No, I did not.
All of the City Council members say they were not influenced at all by the campaign contributions they received. But the Moriarty case, if anything, certainly illustrates how quick politicians can be to take contributions, no questions asked. But now that they know where the money came from, will they return it? Councilman Wax says yes, he will.
I don't want any money that was illegally contributed. And if it was illegally contributed, he gets it back pronto.
Councilman Cunningham says he'll talk to his accountant and then decide. Councilwoman Flores says she probably will not return the money.
I don't really feel duty-bound. I didn't, they weren't in contact with me and I made no decisions. So it can never be alleged that I took the money in exchange for anything.
Any money recovered by the bankruptcy trustee, by the way, will not be going to Patrick Moriarty. It'll be going to satisfy his creditors. And he owes upwards of $20 million, most of that to various banks around Southern California.
He's given huge sums of money to the state politicians. How much money are we talking about?
Well, just in what has been identified as illegal campaign contributions, we're talking in excess of $250,000.
Oh, boy. Okay. Thanks, Jim. It'll be interesting to see what they do, those state politicians.
Sure will be interesting.
Most of the fresh fruits and vegetables available in this area at this time of year, and for that matter, much of the United States, come from Mexico. A Channel 2 investigation has uncovered evidence that lax enforcement of pesticide laws in Mexico may mean more pesticide residue on our produce. And tonight, in the second part of a three-part series, reporter Jim Mitchell looks at the effects of pesticide misuse on the workers who handle those crops. Jim?
Well, John, while there is a long-range debate on the long-range impact of pesticides in our diet, there is very little argument about the dangers of these chemical poisons to farm workers. But for farm workers in Mexico, where most of our winter vegetables are grown, exposure to pesticides is a daily occurrence for them. This is the winter harvest from the Culiacan Valley in Mexico. At this packing plant, workers are cleaning and sorting vegetables, much of it destined for supermarkets here in Southern California. We came here after discovering that produce arriving in our markets from this region was twice as likely to have pesticide residues as U.S.-grown produce. We found that pesticide use in Mexico is poorly supervised and the danger is discounted. While we consumers pay a price, more pesticide residues on our food, the Mexican farm workers and their families pay an even steeper price. Most of the fruit and vegetable harvesting in the valley is done by an army of migrant laborers, the majority native Indians from the south of Mexico. Because of lax supervision, they are constantly exposed to pesticides in the field. And when they return to their homes in the evening, the pesticides come with them. For them, pesticide contamination is an inescapable part of their lives. The campesinos, the farm workers who grow and harvest the vegetables we eat during the winter months in Los Angeles, live in labor camps like this one all over the Culiacan Valley under primitive sanitation conditions. One of the biggest hazards comes from these canals. This is agricultural runoff. It's laced with pesticides and herbicides. It is also the campesinos' principal source of water for drinking, for cooking, for bathing. Throughout the Culiacan Valley, we saw scenes like these, the irrigation canals being used as a laundromat, a kitchen sink, and a bathroom. We also found empty pesticide containers which should have been destroyed because of possible contamination were being used for all kinds of purposes, as water containers and as a means to collect vegetables. And wherever we went, we found villagers who complained about becoming ill from the pesticides.
People that aren't used to it get sick, and they take them to the hospital. You just have to put up with it.
On several occasions, we found workers spraying fields with methaminofos, a powerful pesticide known in the United States under the trade name Monitor. While the use of Monitor is legal on both sides of the border, recent studies indicate the chemical can cause nerve damage in humans. And our analysis of Food and Drug Administration records show that small traces of Monitor are almost 3 times as likely to appear on Mexican fruits and vegetables as on comparable U.S. crops.
The one that really struck my attention was Monitor. I really think that's the problem.
Dr. Mole Coy has researched the effects of pesticides for the federal government.
I would be concerned about its appearance on so many foodstuffs.
So there could conceivably be a hazard to the consumer of the food products?
Yes, I think there could be. I think it needs to be studied very rapidly and dealt with.
The danger is especially great for the fumadores, the men who spray the fields with pesticides. Many of the workers cannot read the danger labels on the pesticides they use. These men had small masks to protect them from toxic fumes, the only ones we saw with any kind of protective equipment during our stay. But they did not know until we told them that the poisonous chemicals they were using could be absorbed directly through their skin.
That's
the way we've always done it. We're used to working that way.
And everywhere we went, workers told us of pesticides which made them so ill they could not continue working.
Headache, pressure on the chest, upset stomach. They had to go to the clinic nearby.
We visited a rural clinic where workers from the fields are treated when they fall ill from pesticide poisoning. While we were there, this man was brought in from the fields. He had fallen unconscious from the effects of the spray. 3 co-workers were also ill but did not come in for treatment. He was suffering classic symptoms of pesticide poisoning: severe cramps, headaches, nausea, dizziness.
It's frequent, very frequent. Some days 4 or 5 come in at the same time when they've been working in the fields and didn't protect themselves. They say they aren't given any protective gear.
While visiting one nearby field, we were approached by a company foreman, and we asked him about the workers' complaints.
We give the protection equipment today, but they don't use it. They don't want to use it.
Does anyone ever come to see if they're using it?
Nobody comes to see?
No.
What about the water over there? We understand pesticides get into the water?
No.
No? Well, when the planes spray over the water, doesn't the pesticide get into the water?
We don't spray in the channels. We don't spray in the channels.
The workers tell us that they see the plane come over and the spray
That's what I say.
go into the channel.
Don't believe anything that they say.
Don't believe anything they say.
You have to see it. This is the way in Mexico with these kind of people.
Tomorrow in my final report, we'll talk to government officials in Mexico City about the conditions we found. And we'll talk to environmentalists on both sides of the border about their efforts to improve those conditions.
What started out as just a minor confrontation between a gang member and some people living in apartments in Sun Valley has turned into a terrifying war of nerves. Since it all began, there have been break-ins, there have been reports of vandalism, and even a bombing. Our Jim Mitchell is in the embattled neighborhood, and he has a live report. Jim?
Well, John, embattled's the word for it. The neighbors here say the problem originates right behind me there at a low-cost housing project where they say a gang controls the turf. A few months ago, one of the gang members ventured down the street to this apartment complex over here. He was caught by the tenants and turned over to the police. He vowed vengeance, and that vengeance has come in the form of numerous attacks against the people and the building. And the neighbors and the people living in that building say they're in fear of their lives. The gangs have left scars on the apartment building, graffiti on the fences. There are broken and boarded up windows where break-ins occurred. But the worst scars are on the minds and spirits of the people who live here.
But you can't see the light over there.
Kim Roundtree lives here with her husband and 5 children. 5 children who watch TV all day because it's too dangerous to play outside.
Every little noise, you jump. You know, it's like you do not relax anymore. You jump at every sound. And, you know, the kids don't understand it. They don't understand why mommy's not her old happy-go-lucky self. And it's hard to explain to a kid because we're living right now in a war zone.
This woman, who asked not to be identified, describes a typical evening at home.
The husbands started doing night watch, and no one ever slept. And when we did lay down there, we'd sleep on the floor because I was personally afraid to get into bed because if they came shooting in there, I figured I was safest on the floor. And you never slept. You just stayed awake. You were afraid to sleep.
The people who live here aren't mad at the police. They think the police are doing everything they can. But it just isn't enough, they say. For example, just a few weeks ago, 2 police officers arrived here to help the people living in the building form a neighborhood watch. While the police officers were inside, their car was bombed.
It's pretty devastating because you think, okay, if they're going to blow up a police car, what you know, we're not the officers, we're not anything really, we're just human beings. They can do anything to us.
And that's why some of the residents, like Jim Clark, are patrolling the apartment building themselves, armed with whatever they can find or make.
I'd probably, you know, swing at him with that if he had a gun or something. You know, I didn't want him to come in on the rest of my family.
What's it like having to live this way?
Oh, man, it's not any fun, you know.
And for this young woman, it was a nightmare. She was beaten senseless inside her own apartment. Now, after 9 days in the hospital, she's afraid to go back.
I'm terrified. I want to go home to Fresno, where I belong. I'm scared of here.
You want to leave?
Go back? Yeah, I want to go back.
It's okay. It's okay. What's being done to protect these tenants? Well, as you can see in this live picture right now, bars on the windows being installed by the owner. Police have also increased patrols in the neighborhood. They've even had foot patrols in here in an effort to end what police agree is a reign of terror. Jim Mitchell, Channel 2 News. Back to the newsroom.
Thank you, Jim. Prescription drug abuse in this area alone is a $100 million a year business, and it has earned Los Angeles the reputation of being the prescription city. Tonight, in the final part of his series on this alarming new development, reporter Jim Mitchell looks at the part doctors play. Jim.
Well, Colleen, physicians who are caught overprescribing dangerous drugs offer all kinds of excuses for their activity, but usually it comes down to a question of money and lots of it. Only a tiny percentage of physicians succumb to that kind of temptation, but for those who do, profits can run into the millions simply by overcharging for phony office visits.
We accompanied state investigators as they went to a Wilshire area apartment of a physician suspected of doing just that.
Police officers, open the door. We got a search warrant for this location. Police officers, open the door. We got a search warrant and arrest warrant for this location. You don't open it up, the door's coming down. Hello? Got to bring a bigger bit of drill? Yeah. Open up the door. Right over the door. Police officers. We got a warrant to search the location for your arrest. Open the door. Or we will take it down. There's none. Open the door. Open the door, it's coming down. Get the chain off. Get up, get up. Do this in front of everybody.
This is Dr. Harry Leon Cron, MD. He's being arrested by state narcotics officers for prescribing drugs without medical indication.
This is the original copy of the search warrant, okay? All right, now you worked at these two places right here, 1145 West Manchester, okay? And also 605 South Norman, okay?
During a 3-month undercover investigation, agents say they purchased 25 prescriptions for more than 1,000 dosage units of Demerol, Quaaludes, and codeine compounds from Dr. Cron at 2 Los Angeles clinics.
It is a diversion of legitimate pharmaceutical drugs to the illicit market, and the doctors who are facilitating this are arrested for prescribing without medical indication, and it does cause us quite a bit of problem in this Los Angeles area.
These so-called Dr. Feelgoods, are they difficult to stop?
Well, they're not real difficult for us to identify who they are. They're real difficult cases to investigate, obtain the evidence, and obtain a criminal filing and conviction in court.
Were you aware that you were under investigation for overprescribing drugs?
No. No, not at all. And I talked to the head of the Board of Medical Quality Assurance several times about different things, asking him questions of what was, about legalities of things, and I don't know, in the course of some of the correspondence, he said, well, if anybody was being investigated, they would know about it.
Well, were you aware of what you could prescribe, what you couldn't prescribe?
Yeah. I didn't prescribe anything illegally.
What the investigators are saying is that they made multiple purchases from the clinics that you were associated with. They were not, apparently, procedures were not followed. These prescriptions were just being handed out like so many pretzels.
No, I get physical lab work every day.
So far as you're concerned, you're saying that you haven't done anything illegal.
Not that I've been careful about that.
Even if the state is successful in prosecuting Dr. Cron, he will probably never see another day in handcuffs. In the past 6 years, 340 physicians have been charged with similar offenses. An estimated 200 have been prosecuted. But the number of overprescribing physicians actually serving a prison sentence? 1. Are the present penalties sufficient enough to deter physicians from getting into drug trafficking?
It depends on the case. I think that historically the sanctions have not been heavy enough, both by our agency and by the criminal authorities who've tended to say, well, this is a physician, and physicians are a different breed, and let's treat them more gently.
Bob Rowland is executive director of the Board of Medical Quality Assurance.
Physicians who break these laws are no different than the common criminal, in fact, and they deserve severe sanctions in our criminal courts.
You know me, I assume. Yes, I do have a copy of the restraining order.
During an earlier raid on a Canoga Park pharmacy, we discovered the owner there was supplying wholesale quantities of drugs directly to doctors' offices and clinics. What can you tell me about Vernon? Do you do a lot of business with them?
Well, they call us a couple times a week.
Mm-hmm. And what do they call you for?
These kind of medicines.
The dangerous drugs?
Yes. And then they order from us, and we sell it to them. And the State Board Inspector knew that, and I showed him. I even sent him down there to check him out.
How much volume were you doing?
I would say 3,000 codeines a week.
Even though state officials had known about the Vernon Medical Doctor's Office for months, it was still very much in operation when our researcher, Tommy Wright, went there. He was able to purchase several prescriptions for dangerous drugs. He purchased them from a man seen here, a man who claimed he was the office manager. We wanted to find out more about this clinic and the people who operate it. But within hours of our first inquiries, their telephone was disconnected, and we've been unsuccessful in our efforts to locate the physician whose name appears on these prescriptions.
It's going to go on. They move down a block or 2 blocks, and it's a rather simple operation, and from word of mouth, you can move your location very easily.
And Mike, an undercover narcotics investigator, says there's only so much law enforcement can do.
There's no way that you can really stop very much. You feel successful when you can identify and prosecute persons involved in this widespread business. But it's so widespread, as I said before, that you can't look at it as though you're really stopping the ocean with mounds of sand.
You can't sweep back the tide.
You can't.
Narcotics investigators say there just doesn't seem to be any simple solution. Tougher laws and longer jail sentences, they feel, might help. But as long as there's a demand for illicit prescription drugs, and it continues, and as long as there's somebody willing to take those kinds of risks to make money, LA will continue to be known as Prescription City. Colleen, Jess?
Those arrests barely made a dent then?
Barely scratched the surface. For every overprescribing physician that's been arrested in the last year, there are probably 20 or perhaps 30 others out there that they know about. The amazing thing is, with the computers and the close controls they have, they know frequently who these people are, but it takes so long to build a case against them.
Thanks, Jim.
Good evening. A new crime wave is giving police and businessmen in the San Fernando Valley big headaches tonight. Bands of thieves are stealing cars, ramming them into stores, and stealing whatever they find. The latest attack occurred early this morning in Northridge. 5 men hit a gun store and were making a getaway when a passerby spotted them. He called police. 26 police officers, using dog teams and helicopters, gave chase. 1 suspect was caught. 4 others are still on the loose tonight. Jim Mitchell has been in the valley all day. He has discovered the battering ram bandits have businessmen feeling worried and defenseless. Jim has more in this live report. Jim?
Well, Jess, I was talking to businessmen here along Ventura Boulevard, and believe me, it's one of their biggest concerns, burglaries. But it used to be in the old days, all you had to worry about was somebody picking a lock or breaking a window. But nowadays, they're stealing cars and trucks and using them as battering rams. And that creates a whole new problem. Look at this over here. There's a store owner who's actually erecting a steel barrier around his building in an effort to keep the battering ram bandits out. And throughout the San Fernando Valley, shop owners are turning their stores into fortresses. This is all that's left of the front of Colortron TV in Reseda, a gaping hole where the front door used to be.
This is Jeff Newman, Colortron TV. Yeah, we had a break-in this morning about 3 o'clock.
For owner Jeff Newman, it's like the replay of a bad movie. It's the second time one of his stores has been hit by the battering ram gangs. This time they used a van.
They came with 2 trucks. One of them, they hit the store from the front, then they turned it around and hit it from the back. And apparently something stalled in the truck. You can see the skid marks on the floor here.
How much do you think you've lost?
I'd guess probably $4,000 to $5,000.
An hour later, just a few miles away in Northridge, a gang used a compact truck to squeeze between steel posts and ram into a gun store.
It's probably gang members coming from south central Los Angeles. This is a very common practice for Crips, 18th Street. They come up into this area, ram a stolen car into the front of an appliance store, TV store, gun store, and take whatever they can and split.
Fred, how many times have you had burglars crash into your store using cars or trucks as battering rams?
Last 2 months, 3 times.
3 times in 2 months?
Yes.
For appliance store owner Fred Sadian, it's been a losing battle. On 2 occasions, thieves used stolen trucks to crash through the back door, so he installed a protective barrier. Then just last Monday, they used a truck to batter their way in again, straight through the side of the building. So you're putting in steel posts around the building now?
We are going maximum security measurement, but it seems whatever we do, they beat us to it.
And TV store owner Jeff Newman says he's going for maximum security, too. A lot of stores out here in the valley are going to start looking like stores in Beirut after a while, aren't they, if this keeps
Yeah, that's about what it looks like, a war zone.
And this is just one of the tactics that the store owners are dealing in their effort to stop these battering ram bandits. When this operation is through here, these poles are only going to be about, 2 or 3 feet apart, and hopefully that'll stop them from ramming this wall with a truck as they did the last time. The police are also very frustrated by it because they're in and out so fast, it makes it very difficult to catch them, except in rare instances as last night, where some passing citizen sees what's going on and calls the police. So it looks like it's going to be a problem that may continue to grow here in the San Fernando Valley. Reporting live, Jim Mitchell, here in the San Fernando Valley along Ventura Boulevard, and now back to you in the newsroom. Jess?
Jim, I'm surprised that doesn't happen more. Wouldn't that make a huge noise and create some kind of a commotion?
It does make a terrific noise, but I'll tell you, these battering ram bandits seem to be picking their targets with a great deal of care. One of the stores they hit last night, for example, was in a shopping center where the only occupant at the present time was the man who owned the television store. Over here you can see when they hit this store, they hit it, yes, perhaps somebody noticed it, perhaps somebody called the police, certainly the burglar alarms went off, but they're in and out of that store, the owner here tells me, in the space of 5 minutes, and in 5 minutes they've left with his entire television and videotape recorder stock. 3 times $20,000 at a crack.
Boy. Okay, thanks, Jim.
Formula kibbles and bits, with hard, crunchy bits and tender, chewy bits, with protein from bits of whole grain cereal, beefy bits, and bits of egg. Puppy Formula kibbles and bits, every bit better for baby. Are you tired of waiting for your roll-on antiperspirant to dry? Now your waiting is over. Introducing new Lady's Choice Dry Roll-On. Look how much water most roll-ons contain. No wonder they're wet. New Lady's Choice has almost none. For unbeatable protection that rolls on feeling dry. With no waiting. New Lady's Choice Dry Roll-On. Now the waiting is over.
Ray, it's over. We're finished with Geritol.
Yes, you've always depended on Geritol.
I've just discovered something new and better. More vitamins and minerals than any leading brand.
29?
And more vitamins at 100% of the recommended daily allowance.
For blood.
This has all of Geritol's high-potency iron protection.
So what is it?
New.
It's new Geritol Complete.
A Geritol Complete protection.
Here's a great idea.
What's that?
New plastic ovenware with non-stick
from San Angelo, Texas, John Henner.
All right. Well, Jay got all the names right. I got the name wrong. It's Jay Stewart. You guys flip on me all the time. I can't tell. How you doing, Allison?
Great.
Well, tell me about yourself.
I'm a sorority girl at Cal State Northridge, and I'm studying advertising.
So what would you like to do?
Hopefully, go into advertising.
That was a real dumb question. I knew it was dumb when I asked it. It was already out. I couldn't do anything about it. Nice to have you with us, Allison. Hi, John.
Hi, Jim.
How are you?
I'm shaking like a leaf.
Well, John, it'll get better. He introduced Tiny Tim to Mr. Whipple. That must have been an incredible meeting.
Yeah, it was, and it's the gospel truth, Chuck. When I first moved to Los Angeles, I took a job at the legendary Hollywood restaurant.
Yeah.
One of my first customers was Tiny Tim. Ordered mineral water, sat down, and before I knew it, another man wanted to be introduced. It was Mr. Whipple. But I didn't know Mr. Whipple's name. So as I was making my way down to make a potentially embarrassing introduction, fortunately, Tiny Tim wheeled around and said, Mr. Whipple. And they hugged and carried on, and I was out there.
They hugged.
Yeah.
You can't squeeze, but you... I don't know. I want to get it. I know. Which one of you won backstage?
I did.
We'll play Scrabble until somebody gets 3 words right, and that player goes on to our Scrabble sprint, and they'll have a chance at $40,000 in cash. Take a look at our board as we set up for the first game. Building on the letter S, 8 letters in the word. The clue is couples do it on their honeymoon. You think you know the word? I know. When you think you know the word, hit your buzzer and then start filling in the missing letters, and those letters are worth money. Watch them. In fact, money goes into the bank. The player who gets 3 words right, all that money. Every dime. John, couples do it on their honeymoon.
No doubt, Chuck. 2 tiles, number 3 and number 7.
An S, the G, which would you like to go?
I'd like the G, please.
Okay. Couples do it on their honeymoon, John.
No guess, Chuck. I'll have to have the S.
Couples do it on their honeymoon.
2 more tiles, please, Chuck. Number 8 and number 9.
N, T.
I'll take the T, please.
Couples do it on their honeymoon, John.
No guess, Chuck. I'm gonna have to have the S.
That's a stopper. One of those 3 letters that don't belong in the word. You hit one of those, you lose your turn. Allison, it's over to you. Yeah. That's 10. 6. You can call those out if you like. 6 you have an H and an I. Okay. Couples do it on their honeymoon, Allison. All right, fill in those blanks. Yes. 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 Sightsee. That's what they do. Yes. All right, that word's worth $200. That's 1 right. The first player to get 2 words right. All the money in the bank. Okay, John, go back to the board. Building on the letter E in sightsee. 7 letters in the word. The clue is they sometimes have moving messages. Any idea what might be? They sometimes have moving messages.
No guess, Chuck.
Okay.
I'll take number 1 and number 6 for my
U
first.
and an S. Which do you want to go?
I'll take the S.
They sometimes have moving messages.
No guess, Chuck. Let's have the U.
They sometimes have moving messages.
2 more tiles, please. Number 2 and number 5.
Remind the home audience you get $50 for every square. The blues are worth 100, the pinks are worth 200, and you have an all-in indiffusion.
Let's try the M.
They sometimes have moving messages, John.
I'll have to have the L.
That's a stopper. It's over to Allison. Allison, they sometimes have moving messages. Any idea what it might be?
No guess.
Okay. Have an E and a D. Which would you like to try?
I'll take the B.
They sometimes have moving messages. All right. That's the second stopper. It's back to John. John, they sometimes have moving messages. You want to fill it in? All right. Fill in those blanks.
P.
Yes.
R.
Yes.
Bumper.
That's it. Bumpers sometimes have moving messages in more ways than one. Words worth 100, 300 in the bank. Allison, let's go back to you. Building on the letter U and bumpers, 9 letters in the word. Clue is, he's got his eye on you. Yes.
G.
Yes.
D. Bodyguard.
Bodyguard is exactly right. Excuse me for that. The word was worth $350. You now have $650 in the bank. John, see if you can fire up. Building on the letter R in bodyguard. Would you guys leave? We can't give you an inch out there. 6 letters in the word. The clue is it has a certain balance. It has a certain balance.
No guess, Chuck. I'll take number 8 and number 5. I'll try the 8.
It has a certain balance.
No guess, Chuck. The E.
It has a certain balance.
I'm a vegetable. I'll take 2 more. Number 6 and number 7.
Man, there's a basic stick of broccoli over here. That can't be hooker. Have a B and a D. Which do you want to try?
Can I have the clue then, please?
Yes, it has a certain balance.
I'll take the P, please.
Stopper. Didn't work. Allison, it's over to you. You won the game with this. It has a certain balance.
No guess.
Okay.
I'll take number 5. I'll take
U and a D.
Okay, I'll take the B, please.
That's the second stopper now, John. You're in pretty good shape. It has a certain balance is the clue.
I'm going to take another time.
Okay.
Number 1.
U and a T.
I'll try the T.
It has a certain balance. Okay.
And
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Nature.
A blue and a pink square. That's worth $300. That's what the word's worth. It's up to $950 in that bank now. Whoever wins this next word is going to take it all home for with him. He's got a 2-2 tie. We're in a speed-word situation. Put your hands on your buzzers. Wait till I say go. We'll start putting in the letters one at a time. You can know the word with your buzzer. Building on the letter N in nature, 7 letters in the word. The clue is a lot of people don't mind them. Okay, John.
M.
Yes.
A.
Yes.
M.
Yes.
E.
Yes.
R.
Yes.
M.
You got it. Yes. Manners. I'm sorry, boy. You just came right out. Do you have any idea what that was, Allison? Boy, that was quick. Talk about coming to you out of the blue. Gee, me, John. That's great. That word was worth $450. You've accumulated $1,400. So that's very, very good. You win. Allison, honey, thanks for playing the game. We've never had that happen before. Somebody just come in and pop it like that. That's your bad luck. This is good luck. Thank you. That's real nice partnership. Thanks for playing. So, John, come on down. John, 1,400. Nice job. Take that home with you. We're going to play Scrabble Snap for 1,500 just a minute. Stay with us.
I want it strong, but I want it good. Introducing Maragor Bold from Taster's Choice. For those who like their coffee bold. Because it's made with the larger, more flavorful coffee beans like the giant Maragor GPP. Bold, big, bold flavor. Because it's dark roasted for a superior, stronger gourmet choice. New Maragor Bold. And bold decaffeinated. Yeah, 2 bold new reasons why the choice for taste is Taster's Choice.
Well, it's been fun.
Yeah.
We'll get together.
Sure.
Hey. Here.
What's this?
Open it. Go on.
Sometimes you wish these special moments of childhood would last forever. You can't keep your child from changing, but you can save memories of today by having professional photographic portraits taken at Sears. And now, through this Saturday only, Sears Portrait Studio offers a package of 3 5x7s and 15 wallet-sized portraits for only $9.95, including 95-cent deposit. Create a portrait memory of today at Sears.
When you suffer from minor arthritis, closing your hand even this much hurts. But I discovered arthritis pain foam, the Amnesty arthritis. It's made strong for hours of relief from arthritis.
Watch. Move this much, and minor arthritis pain can flare up. But ATF microfined aspirin speeds relief to the source of pain, so you can move without pain.
Now I can close my hand this
5 wins, they'll both be playing for $1,500. Each team will play the same